Jocko, did you ever use jiu-jitsu in combat? Wouldn't a striking art be better for combat situations?
Okay, so yes, and definitely. This is one of the things where I was actually, I read things about this and people say, well, no, I mean, why would a SEAL ever have to use, hand-to-hand combat? They have a rifle, they have a pistol, they've got buddies with them. So if you have to use your hand-to-hand combat, you've done something wrong. And that's actually completely wrong. Because, it's very simple. You go into a room where there's people in there and none of them are armed and you have to get control of them. You can't just start shooting people. You're going to have to get control of them.
Right.
So how do you get control of them? Well, again, how does striking give you control of someone?
Right.
The answer is it does not.
Yep.
Unless you have a miracle touch that you can just knock people out with one touch and then you can handcuff them. Boxers don't knock each other out consistently. It's very difficult to knock someone out. And so this idea that, striking is better, you absolutely have to know how to strike. But striking is a very inconsistent way to get control of somebody. Very, very inconsistent way of controlling people. And actually, the sad thing is that striking is the most traumatic to the person that you're applying it to. And, we used to do something, or we were taught something called a muzzle strike, right? Where you'd basically hit the person with the muzzle of your gun. And the people that were teaching it would be like thinking that just stopped people. Like, you give them one good muzzle strike, because it does. It seems like, a muzzle is a very small point of impact. And you think, if I put all my force behind this small point of impact, man, that's really going to, hurt somebody and take them down. And I saw hundreds of muzzle strikes, and they're really brutal. And what they do is they cut you. They cut you open very badly. I saw a lot of really bad cuts.
With what, like a
with
rifle?
a rifle?
Yeah,
with a rifle. And but they seldom did they actually knock the person out.
Yeah.
So what do you do then? You muzzle strike them again. And then what do you do after that? You muzzle strike them again. And what do you do? So you end up just
beating them. Dang.
But it's a harsh beating, because you're using a pretty sharp muzzle of a weapon, which is cutting them open. So it's not the best. Whereas if someone can get control of somebody in a grappling type scenario, get control of them, clinch with them, take them down quickly, you can get control of them very quickly, and they feel it. And they resist less because they kind of feel owned.
Right.
And they also don't feel like you're hurting them. Yeah. Whereas when you're striking them in the face, man, what's your natural reaction if I strike you in the face? You're going to put your hands up. Well, if you put your hands up, maybe you're trying to attack me. Now I got to hit you even harder. So it's kind of a bad deal. So yeah, and then once you get a person on the ground, obviously, the more you know, the better you're going to do. And that's why, it's good. It's good to have that well-roundedness, but you definitely want to use, you definitely want to have a good ground game. You want to have good striking too, of course. But the jiu-jitsu and the ground game is very important, because you've got to control people. And in a combat situation, everybody you come up against is not a combatant, and they still need to get controlled. And some people, you can just motion to them to get down, and that's great. And then you can tell them to lay down, and that's great. And you can have your interpreter tell them to put their hands behind their back, and then that's great. Or you can say that, you can learn a few phrases, which we always did. We always knew a few phrases to tell them to, get down, show me your hands or whatever. But then you get the person that maybe they don't respond to what you're saying. And why aren't they responding? And this is something I see, in some of these police videos. When I yell at you, get down. Well, you might be scared. You might not know what I'm talking about. You might have headphones on. You might be deaf. You might just be frozen with fear.
Yeah.
You might be a bad guy. You might be getting ready to run. All those different things. But if you're not doing what I tell you to do, I got to get you to the ground. So how am I going to do that? And again, I can walk up and take a swing at you, but, I've been punched in the face many, many times. Haven't been knocked out, but twice. So all the times I've been punched in the face, many, many times, I don't know how many, but many, many times, it's hard to knock someone out. So if you think because you walk over and strike someone, you're going to knock them out and then you're going to have control of them, it's just not true. It's just a fallacy. So you're going to have to know some. And the thing, this all goes back to this, this case, and I forget what the case was, but somebody got choked years ago, like in the 70s, by a police officer, and I think they died or whatever, but they banned choking. They banned choking from most police forces. So that's why these guys, what do? They pull out their batons and start beating people. That was a big thing with Rodney King. Why didn't someone just go and put this guy to sleep?
Yep.
And he'd have no marks on his body. He'd be okay. You could bring him back to the jail cell. He's not going to have contusions. He's not going to have the crap beat on him. He have no permanent damage whatsoever. But it wasn't allowed because of the political situation that had happened years before. You weren't allowed to teach someone how to choke someone and put them to sleep and completely incapacitate them.
Yeah.
I mean, the chokehold is a beautifully powerful thing. And when you saw the Rodney King tape. I mean, I don't know how many cops there were, but there's multiple cops beating him. That's a classic example of what I'm saying. Just because you strike someone even with a billy club, doesn't mean they're going to stop.
Yep.
Whereas when you put a chokehold on somebody, they are going to sleep.
Yep.
They are going to sleep 100%.
Yeah.
And when you have 3 cops going against one guy, someone's going to get a chokehold on.
Yeah.
And despite what they did to Rodney King, beating him, he wasn't stopping. And so, yeah, it's one of those things. I really hope that the law enforcement gets the ability to use, to train better, to use chokeholds, to use other forms of grappling, because it is absolutely superior from a law enforcement perspective and from like I said, from a military perspective. When you go into a room and there's non-combatants in there that you have to get control over, you don't want to start beating people.
Yeah.
You want to use the minimum required force.
Yeah.
And yet when people aren't compliant, you have to be able to do something.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, the minimum required force, that essentially makes striking obsolete if you're trying to approach it that way, or if that's the regulation,
Yeah,
striking,
but even if it's not the regulation, if you're a human,
yeah,
and you've got a woman that is scared or doesn't speak your language or is petrified or whatever the case may be, your answer is to strike her in the face.
Right.
And by the way, what does her husband do when you strike her in the face?
Yeah.
As opposed to if you come over, you put your hands on her, you gently push her to the ground, you feel some resistance, maybe you have to do some sort of manipulation of a joint to get to control, but that is so much more mild than a muzzle strike to the face.
Yeah, and if you know what to do, if you know jiu-jitsu,
it's a no-brainer.
And it's not hard to do to people. And and you'll see sometimes when someone's trying to gain control, and they'll put their arm behind their back, like chicken wing situation. They'll do it all hard, like real hard, because they kind of got to add that element of pain so the guy will kind of quote unquote know. But most jiu-jitsu stuff, you don't have to put that pain. Nope. It's just that controlling. Like you just can't. That's why a lot of people were talking about this today, how a lot of people, after they get their first time in jiu-jitsu or something, or early on in jiu-jitsu, a guy will tap them out and they'll have this thing in their mind like, oh, I just have to go harder. I can gain some kind of control. I just got to go harder, but because it's not a hard thing. It's not a aggressive feeling to get controlled like that. You're just simply controlled.
And this ties so much to life because we talk about. You hear me talk about this all the time. And I was going back and forth with somebody on Twitter the other day I'm like, you got to use the indirect approach with people.
Right.
So picture this. Next time you're dealing with a person that's combative, and I mean now I'm talking about verbally combative, or their ideas are combative against your combatives, is the first thing you want to do go up and punch them in the face or muzzle strike them?
Right.
Because what is their reaction going to be? What their reaction is going to be to immediately be defensive. You don't want to put people in that predicament. Mm-hmm. You want to use the jiu-jitsu on them. Yeah. You want to get them feeling comfortable. I mean, when you're going to sleep, when somebody puts a chokehold on you, you're done. I mean, you're just going to sleep. You sneak in behind. So don't get this idea that when you're dealing with people in a confrontation, not only physically, but a verbal or a mental confrontation, and I'm not even talking about a confrontation in, yelling in the street. I'm talking about in the office.
Right.
I'm talking about dealing with one of your subordinates. I'm talking about dealing with your boss or whoever. Think about instead of thinking about, hey, I'm going to, smash this person in the face and that's going to bring me the win. No, it's not. Generally, it is not. Generally, what brings you the win is, okay, hey, here's what's going on. Let's sneak in there. Let's get inside their head. Let's not aggravate the situation.
Yeah.
Let's bring the situation towards a better area where we can use our control.
Yeah, you won't get the win. You'll get a fight,
Oh yeah, you'll definitely get a fight.
even though that's not the goal. Yeah, if they are combative, and your answer is to be more combative, and
Now
of
you-
course
now you
their
gotta
answer,
fight, yeah.
their answer is gonna be even more combative. So yeah, then you got yourself a fight. Hannah and them, the Gracies, they're doing good stuff with law enforcement.
Cool.
Using jujitsu and actual police tactics, so it comes from so it's
Good.
in context.
And you know what? If you're a police officer out there or you're in law enforcement, and Henner, that's great. Guess what? There's a jiu-jitsu studio everywhere in the country right now.
Yeah.
Go train some jiu-jitsu.
Yeah.
Just go start training. No big deal. Just go start training.
Yeah, and I have a friend, Craig. He's from Hawaii. He good cop. You see him on Facebook. I'll like repost stuff sometimes. He'll come down to the skate park, whether he got called or whatever.
I saw that you posted that.
Yeah, and he'll
shredding.
Yeah, he'll do some skating or he'll race some or whatever. But he's a jiu-jitsu guy. I think he's a purple or brown belt.
Yeah,
I
so he
think.
has the confidence.
And, yeah, man.
That's what it is. He has the confidence.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yep. You can be a good guy. Good guy with the power.